A brand new secret layer just got announced, and this one centers around the interesting concept of trippy concert posters.
Magic. I am a wizard! History. I'm an old wizard! The magic historian. My bones hurt.
Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. My friends, we are here for a joyous video where we're just going to get to take a look at a bunch of interesting Magic the Gathering cards. Let us see what sort of funky reprints they have in store, specifically themed from an ancient era, right? We're looking at a nostalgic trip into the past with artwork that is specifically designed around the concept of old school music posters or album covers, depending on how you want to look at it. And it will be very evident right away when we take a look at the first card here that you can see the effect they've gone for is very, very striking. Now, it immediately, right off the bat, doesn't look like a Magic the Gathering card. It specifically doesn't look like a white card, but that's what we're looking at here. This is Wrath of God, and there's a lot of interesting aspects about this. First of all, the bubbly sort of language that they have there with the Wrath of God looks very funky and almost like it's melting. Now, that's obviously part of the design behind it. It's supposed to have a psychedelic feel to it, right? So, the casting cost is arrayed on the one side. It's 2 white and 2. The actual card itself is a sorcery. I think it's funky that they got the sorcery down on one side, and then you've got the crazy hypnotic swirl in the middle. And then on the other side, destroy all creatures, they can't be regenerated. So it's almost like the type line where it would normally have sorcery has been shifted downwards, and the entirety of the card's ability has been fit on that as well. I mean, Wrath of God has some pretty straightforward wording, right? It's just 2 sentences. Destroy all creatures, they can't be regenerated. It's a very potent effect. I mean, Wrath of God has been an amazing card since the beginning of Magic. The they can't be regenerated clause isn't as big a deal these days because there aren't as many regenerating creatures, but it's still a nice upside. All the other sort of cards that you see now that destroy all creatures don't add on the, oh, by the way, they can't be regenerated clause. Now, the artwork on this is pretty intense. You have what looks like a sorceress, right? She's got her hands outstretched like she's pulling out this kind of flamey light magic, and in the middle there's this kind of liquid eye. I could picture like her kind of pulling her hands apart and the light expands, and inside you've got this orangish kind of essence, and all of a sudden it blinks open and there's an eye, but with this fluid kind of motion around it and a crazy little symbol underneath. Behind her you have this crazy looking 3-eyed like demonic goat Satan sort of setup. It's interesting to think back to Magic's like older history, because there was a certain point in time where people were genuinely worried that this sort of like Magic the Gathering would lead to the corruption of the youth and lead them to worship in the devil, right? And if you look at this artwork, this is the kind of artwork that would have had them up in arms back in the day, where it's like, oh my God, little Billy, what are you playing with? It's so intense, man. You've got the crazy devil goat in the background. On the other side, you have this other crazy face that looks like it's almost like a screen door that has just been stretched over a skull, and the eyes are blood red and looking in either direction with this crazy grin and pointed teeth. It's nuts. You got a little like Illuminati triangle down in the corner. This is a pretty intense bit of Magic the Gathering artwork, but it really works for me. I like the sorceress front and center. I like the perspective of she's kind of looking down on you. This is really cool. This is a great card to start with. Let's take a look at the next one that we have, and that is Preordained. Man, there is a lot going on here. So, Preordained, where have they located the casting costume? Oh, they put it right in his head. Cool. All right, Preordained costs 1 blue. It's actually centered as like a gem on the dude's forehead. That's cool. So you've got Preordained at the top. Then you've got Sorcery right below it telling you what type of card it is. Down at the bottom, you've got the actual rules text. Scry 2, then draw a card. I love how much is going on in this artwork, right? You've got this crazy, like, digitalized face that has the feeling of, like, old school 3D animation. And I mean, like, really, really old school. We're going back decades to get to this level. Do you know what it actually kind of reminds me of? I don't know if you guys have seen it, but there's an old movie called like Lawnmower Man, and this just gives me those Lawnmower Man kind of vibes. I like the fact that you have it like divided with this sort of, I mean, it's not perfectly symmetrical overall for the artwork, but there is this symmetrical sort of dividing line where you have like night and day, and night is comprised of this infinite looking sky with tons of stars, planets, and all of this stuff going on. You have stars that are represented by the dots, but you also have these crazy sort of stars that are multiple triangles laid over top of each other. And then you've got like smoke flowing up. It's like the Milky Way. It looks like there's some planets exploding down in the bottom. That's intense. And then on the light side, you've got more of that kind of crazy triangle pattern, but this one's been filled in with colors, which really changes the way it looks compared to the hollow ones on the other side. The face in the middle with the whole half colored in, not colored in, gives this sort of like duality vibe, which I really dig. And the hollow nature of it on the dark side versus the filled in on the light side feels good. And then you have like these crazy ribbons of color that are coming up, but also have kind of an organic feel to it, where it might be like it feels like it might be the innards of a cosmic being. This gives me vibes not only from Lawnmower Man, but also from the old heavy metal movie. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but this is some really interesting artwork, man. There's a lot going on here. I dig this vibe very much. The next card we have to talk about is Decree of Pain. And you may have noticed each card is a different color. We're getting one card from each color in this secret layer to create the full 5-color effect. So we've got Decree of Pain. This is an interesting choice. So it's 2 black and 6. It's really funky how the black mana symbols are actually represented by white skulls, right? I mean, that is definitely different. Normally when it comes to the mana symbols, they're going to be color-coded to what color they are, but these are white black mana symbols. I like it. The way that the 2 skulls and 6 up there work pretty well for me. The concept behind this one, Decree of Pain, it does actually feel like a band name, right? And you've got this crazy, almost phoenix body of flame that's risen up, and inside of it you have multiple like demon spirits that are basically coming out. So it's either like there are multiple of these demons, or there's one major demon, and you've got these little demonlets, these little demonlings, whatever you want to call them, that are floating around it, right? And it's got this kind of wavy, oh dude, I didn't even notice there's 2 like black hands like this that the fire magic is raising. It's just like, oh, the flames, and from the flames devils spawn. It is the Decree of Pain. And it's like the only thing blanketed in the universe. So it's like the only thing that exists in this universe is pain. That's deep, bro. So, what is Decree of Pain? It is an 8 casting cost sorcery. Destroy all creatures. They can't be regenerated. Destroy. I'm having a hard time here. Draw a card for each creature destroyed this way. So, I mean, that's a really potent effect. Yes, it costs a lot of mana, but you get to wipe all creatures off the board that aren't indestructible, and they can't be regenerated, and then you get to fill your mitt with a bunch of cards. This is a card that I played in my cube, and it is really, really solid. So it's a cool choice. And this was from, originally the decrees were from the Onslaught block. And the idea behind them was, in the Onslaught block, they were playing around with the idea of enhancing cycling. Because up until that point, cycling was simply discard this card to draw a card. But they added in triggers so that when you cycle cards, you get an effect. Kind of making it like a miniature version of the same spell. So with Decree of Pain, because there's a cycle of these across all 5 colors, but with Decree of Pain, it's 2 black and 3 to cycle it. When you cycle it, all creatures get -2/-2 until end of turn, and you also get to draw the card for cycling. So it's like a miniaturized version of the Decree of Pain for lesser mana. And I remember really being impressed with this concept when it first came along, because it's really cool to go, okay, you know what? We've got this big flashy effect, but if you're in a pinch and you need to, you can cast it for less and still get a nice effect out of it. So that's a nice way to boost cycling. And overall, I really dig the vibe of this card. It's very cool. After that, we've got Gamble. Wow, look at this, man. This totally has the like the old school vibe to me. So Gamble is 1 red. You can see the gigantic red mana symbol that's sitting atop a skull. All right, and like, oh, let's before we talk about the art, I guess let's talk about the card. So Gamble, 1 red, sorcery. Oh, the way that sorcery is styled along, it literally looks like it's part of a spell that's being cast. It's got that vibe of magical energy. If you weren't really paying attention and trying to see the word, it would blend right in. They're really doing a good job with the overall concept of this. So it's a sorcery. Search your library for a card, put that card into your hand, discard a card at random, then shuffle your library. I've always loved Gamble because it's such a tight little package in terms of a magic card. You fully understand what the concept is. You're spending a bit of red mana to take a gamble. And if the gamble pays off, you're going to get something amazing. But you could gamble and lose what's most important to you. So that has a very like red feel to it because red is willing to risk things to get what it wants in a chaotic sort of fashion. So this card has always felt fantastic as an actual red card. And this artwork is intense, man. Look at that skull that's been split. You can see this kind of faceless raider in the artwork. He's got like a studded leather shoulder guard and straps and bags. It's like a dungeon adventure, but maybe in like a it's got that maybe this is in the future kind of vibe where you're far off in the future, but things have regressed enough that in some ways it's medieval. So they're still using swords and armor, or they've reverted to using swords and armor. And it seems like this guy's face is covered in some kind of mask, right? He's like a masked bandit. Look at his blade. It's got this eye on it and this little tongue, so it probably speaks to him. He probably connects with that sword, and it's all got these jagged break lines in it as well. And most likely that's what was used to split the skull that is shown in the artwork down there in the corner, where it's just boom, bursting out in multiple directions. It's almost like it got cut boom and 2 times in quick succession, and the skull is like sliding apart, and you can see the eyes in different directions as it's like, that looks awesome. So you have this gamble artwork where this guy is reaching out for this powerful gemstone while some sort of eye-patched rogue is in the background staring on with what looks like maybe a bit of sweat on the face. It kind of looks like the guy who's reaching forward also has sweat coming from his face. And this gem is radiating this crazy amount of like energy, right? Because you can see it glowing off of him, and you can see it glowing off of the horrible thing that this gem is embedded in. What is going on here? It kind of has an Akira vibe. Like if you look at it, this is almost like either a mass of brains or a mass of intestines, right? Like this is some sort of innards, and on top of it you've got a skull, but there's an eye, like a light up eye, but the skull is being pushed back almost like the crystal was embedded in like a human body or whatever, and caused these horrific changes where it caused all the flesh to wither away off the skull, but at the same time the flesh of the body distended and the innards all started flailing about and growing out. Totally Akira vibe to me. This is some intense artwork. It's an entire story in a card. I dig this very, very much. It looks awesome. All right, so I believe that just leaves us with Nature's Lore. Quite a departure from the previous artwork we looked at. That other artwork had a gross, like, caught in a moment of, like, heated exchange sort of setup, whereas this has a cool, calm, mystic vibe to it. So this is Nature's Lore, and this is a green card, although it doesn't really feel like a green card from the look of it. So it's 1 green and 1 for a sorcery. The flavor text, not flavor text, I should say, the rules text is search your library for a forest card, put that card onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. The flavor text says, greetings, tired traveler. Dude, I love the vibe of this card. It's interesting that they chose Nature's Lore, because Nature's Lore is a card that didn't get that much love when it first came out, all the way back in the days of Ice Age, right? Most people just kind of went, meh, but it's a pretty solid card. It basically lets you go and grab a forest, put it into play untapped, and it doesn't care about it being a basic forest, which means you can use this to go and get shock lands, you can use this to go and get original dual lands. It's fairly potent, right? It's not too shabby a card, but the artwork is really, really cool. You have this crazy owl statue, or maybe it's not even a statue. Maybe it's a living being, right? But just imagine wandering through the woods in the twilight and you come across this clearing. I love this crazy little almost tombstone, but really it just feels more like it's got more of a mystic vibe to it, right? Like it's the marker of maybe an ancient site where magic rituals took place, like deep in the dark hours of the night. The owl has this kind of inscrutable knowledge look to him where he's just sitting there with this look. He's got his arms, or not his arms, I should say, his wings down on either side. This crazy gemstone up on his head, another one embedded in his forehead. One of his eyes has this crazy kind of pointed sunflower vibe going on. Like there's these different details where overall it's mostly symmetrical, but you've got these little quirks that make it feel unnatural, right? Like under the one eye, you have like a second eye kind of sitting there as well. I love the fact that it's framed by these trees on either side, but then behind it, there are no trees. So there's this clearing. Like, what is going on behind this? Is this some sort of owl mentor, or is this an ancient ritual location? Either way, the vibe is fantastic for this. Now, yeah, okay, so I definitely covered all the cards. My brain was like, did I cover all 5? I got all tripped up, getting all excited about how awesome this stuff looks. So, that's the entirety of the Secret Lair. I believe it's going to be available in both foil and non-foil. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. List of my top patrons scrolling on by, and I'll put a link to a funny comedy video that I've made on my other channel that you should go and check out. Thanks for coming by, my friends. I will see you guys for the next video.